The afternoon sun hung low over the neighborhood, casting long shadows across cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences. School had just let out, and the usual buzz of kids spilling onto the streets filled the air. Laughter, shouting, the squeak of sneakers on pavement. But one boy walked home alone, his backpack slung low on one shoulder, his eyes scanning the road ahead like he was looking for something, or someone. He wasn't in a hurry. In fact, he moved with a kind of quiet purpose, like every step mattered. His shoulders were straight, his hands relaxed but ready, the way someone walks when they've been taught to notice everything around them. He'd just come from the community center on Oak Street, where twice a week, rain or shine, he trained in martial arts under the watchful eye of a retired Marine who didn't believe in flashy moves or showy kicks. Real defense, the man always said, isn't about winning a fight. It's about never having to be in one. The boy had taken those words to heart. He wasn't the type to pick fights. He kept his head down at school, focused on his grades, helped his mom with groceries, and made sure his little sister got home safe. That last part had become more important lately. His sister was 13, still young enough to believe the world could be kind, but old enough to know it wasn't always. She walked home from middle school every day, usually with a friend or two, but lately those friends had started taking different routes. They hang out near the bus stop now, she'd told him one evening, her voice small, eyes fixed on her plate of mac and cheese. I don't like walking past them alone. He'd looked up from his own dinner. Who's they? She'd shrugged, but her fingers twisted the hem of her hoodie. Just some kids from the high school, they say stuff. He didn't push her. He knew better. When she got quiet like that, it meant something was wrong, and pushing only made her shut down. So he waited, and the next day he followed her route after his own classes ended, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. He saw them before she did. 3 older boys leaning against the brick wall near the corner store, laughing too loud, eyes tracking every kid who passed. When his sister came into view, their laughter sharpened. One of them called out something he couldn't hear, but the way her shoulders hunched told him everything. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She just walked faster, head down, gripping her backpack straps like they were lifelines. The boys hooted, one of them mimicking her walk. It made his stomach tighten, but he stayed hidden, watching. He didn't step in, not yet. Because he knew that if he showed himself now, they'd just wait until he wasn't around. And then it would be worse. That night, he found her in her room, sitting cross-legged on her bed with her math homework spread out. Her eyes were red. Not puffy like she'd been sobbing, but tired, like she'd been holding back tears all day. You okay? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. She didn't look up. Yeah. He stepped inside and sat on the edge of her bed. You don't gotta lie to me, she sighed, finally meeting his eyes. They keep messing with me. Every day, calling me names, saying I look like a boy. One of them tried to grab my backpack yesterday. I told him to stop, and he laughed like it was a joke. His hands curled into fists, but he forced them open. Did you tell Ms. Rivera? Or the security guard? I told Ms. Rivera, she said quietly. She said she'd look into it, but nothing happened. And now they know I told, so they're worse. He nodded slowly. He'd seen how these things went. Adults promised help, then forgot. Or worse, they blamed the victim for provoking something by existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'd heard it all before. You don't have to walk alone, he said. I can walk with you. She shook her head fast. No, they'll just wait until you're not there. And then, I don't know, they might do something crazy. You've got college stuff to worry about. Don't let this mess you up. He wanted to argue, but he saw the fear in her eyes, not just of the bullies, but of dragging him into it. She was trying to protect him, even though she was the one getting hurt. That hit harder than any punch ever could. Later that night, after their mom had gone to bed and the house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, he sat on the back porch with his phone. He opened a text thread with his instructor. They're messing with my sister every day. Today they grabbed her. 3 dots appeared. Then, are you okay? Is she okay? She's scared. They don't stop, a pause. Then, remember what I taught you. Control isn't just about your body. It's about your mind. Don't let anger decide for you, but don't let fear decide either. He stared at the message for a long time. He knew what his instructor meant. He'd trained for years, not because he wanted to fight, but because he never wanted to feel helpless again. His dad had left when he was 8, and after that, the neighborhood felt less safe. His mom worked double shifts at the hospital, and he'd made a silent promise to himself. No one would hurt his family if he could stop it. He'd started with boxing gloves in the garage, punching a worn-out bag until his knuckles bled. Then he found the community center where the retired Marine, everyone just called him Coach, taught practical self-defense. How to break a grip, how to create space, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. No belts, no tournaments, just real skills for real life. Coach always said, the best fight is the one that never happens. But if it had to happen, you made sure it ended fast, and you made sure no one got seriously hurt. That was the line. And he'd never crossed it. But now someone was hurting his sister. And every time she came home with that tired look in her eyes, that line felt thinner. The next morning, he walked her to school. She protested at first, but he just slung his backpack over his shoulder and said, I'm going this way anyway. She rolled her eyes, but he saw the relief in her step. At the school gate, she turned to him. You don't have to do this. I know, he said, but I want to. She gave him a small smile, then disappeared into the crowd of students. He watched until she was inside, then turned toward his own school, which was only 10 blocks away. But as the week went on, he noticed something. The bullies didn't show up when he was with her. They'd vanish the moment they saw him coming, melting into side streets or ducking into the corner store. But the second he left her at the gate, they'd reappear later, waiting near the bus stop, loitering by the park, always just out of sight of teachers or cameras. It was a game to them, and his sister was the target. One afternoon, he came home to find her sitting on the front steps, knees pulled to her chest. Her backpack was on the ground beside her, zipper torn open, notebook spilled out. What happened? He asked, dropping his bag and crouching in front of her. She didn't cry. She just stared at the sidewalk. They took my phone, said I owed them rent for walking on their block. Her voice was flat, like she was reciting a weather report. I told them I didn't have rent. Then one of them shoved me into the fence. He saw it then, the faint bruise blooming on her forearm, the dirt on her jeans. His chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around his ribs and pulled. Did you tell Mom? She shook her head. She's already stressed about work. I don't want her worrying. He helped her gather her things, his hands steady even though his mind was racing. That night, after she'd gone to bed, he sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. He wrote down everything she'd told him, the names she knew, the times, the places, what they said, what they did. He drew a map of her route home, marking where they usually waited. Then he dug out an old bike light with a camera he'd used for a science project last year. It was small, barely noticeable if clipped to a backpack strap. He charged it overnight. The next day he clipped it to her bag without telling her. New light, he said casually, so you can see the sidewalk better. She gave him a puzzled look but didn't argue. For 3 days he reviewed the footage after school. Grainy, shaky, but clear enough. He saw them surround her near the bus stop. Heard the taunts. Hey boy girl, where you going? You think you're cute? Saw the shove, the grab for her bag. His stomach churned, but he kept watching. He needed proof. Not just for himself, but for the school, for the police, for anyone who might finally listen. He also started walking a different route home, looping around blocks, doubling back, timing his steps so he could be nearby without being seen. He practiced breathing exercises Coach had taught him. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. It kept the anger from boiling over. One evening his mom came home exhausted, her scrub stained with coffee and something darker. She kissed the top of his sister's head, then slumped into a chair at the table. How was school? She asked, rubbing her temples. Fine, his sister said quickly. He hesitated, then said, Actually, Keisha's been having some trouble with kids from the high school. His mom's eyes snapped open. What kind of trouble? He told her, carefully without exaggeration. Just the facts. The name-calling, the shoving, the stolen phone, which they'd tossed in a dumpster 2 blocks away. He'd found it the next morning, screen cracked but still working. His mom's face went pale, then red. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She didn't want to worry you, he said. And I thought I could handle it. You shouldn't have to handle it, his mom said fiercely. No kid should. She called the school the next morning. The vice principal promised to investigate, but days passed and nothing changed. The two bullies were still there, still waiting. That's when he made his decision. He wouldn't start a fight, but he wouldn't let them hurt her again. He went to the community center that afternoon. Coach was sweeping the mats, his movements slow but precise. "I need to talk," the boy said. Coach looked up, didn't say anything, just nodded toward the bench he sat. Took a breath. They touched her, shoved her into a fence, took her phone. Coach stopped sweeping. "And I want to be ready. If it happens again, I need to know I can stop it without making it worse." Coach studied him for a long moment. Then he set the broom aside and sat beside him. "You've got good instincts. You've trained hard. But remember, your job isn't to punish them. It's to protect her. There's a difference." "I know." "Good. Then we'll go over de-escalation again. Pressure points. How to create distance. And most importantly, how to walk away once it's over." They trained for 2 hours that day, slow, deliberate movements, practicing scenarios. How to block a grab. How to pivot out of a choke. How to use your voice to command space. "Back off now." As he walked home, the weight in his chest felt lighter. Not gone, but manageable. He wasn't just reacting anymore. He was preparing. That night he checked the camera footage again. Watched his sister flinch as a hand reached for her. Watched her stand her ground even when she was scared. He felt a surge of pride and a deeper resolve. He wouldn't let fear win. Not hers. Not his. And if those boys thought they could keep hurting someone smaller, someone quieter just because they thought no one would stop them, they had no idea who they were dealing with. The days that followed felt like walking on thin ice, quiet on the surface but something dangerous shifting underneath. He kept walking his sister to school, even though she insisted she was fine. "They haven't said anything all week," she'd say, trying to sound cheerful, but her eyes darted toward the bus stop every time they passed it. He knew better than to believe it. Bullies didn't just stop. They waited. They watched. They tested. And sure enough, by the following Monday they were back. This time they didn't just shout from a distance. They stepped into her path as she turned the corner near the laundromat, blocking the sidewalk like they owned it. There were 4 of them now. 2 he recognized from the footage and 2 new faces, older, taller, with that swagger that came from thinking no one would ever challenge them. One of them wore a red hoodie, arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won something. His sister froze. She didn't look back for help. She just stood there, gripping her backpack straps, shoulders tight. He was half a block behind, pretending to tie his shoe. His heart hammered, but his hand stayed steady. He watched as Red Hoodie leaned in and said something low. His sister shook her head. Then one of the others snatched her notebook right out of her hands and flipped through it, laughing at her neat handwriting, her doodles in the margins. "Look at this," the boy sneered. "She draws hearts like a little kid." His sister reached for it. "Give it back." Red Hoodie shoved her shoulder, not hard enough to knock her down, but enough to make her stumble back a step. That was the line. That was the moment everything changed. He stood up slowly, brushing dirt off his jeans. He didn't run. He didn't yell. He just walked toward them, calm and steady, like he was heading to the store for milk. The boys noticed him when he was about 10 feet away. Their laughter faltered. Red Hoodie turned, squinting. "Who's this?" His sister's eyes widened. "Don't," she started, but he held up a hand just slightly, telling her without words to stay quiet. He stopped a few paces from the group. "Give her the notebook," Red Hoodie scoffed. "Or what, you gonna cry to your mommy?" He didn't flinch. "Or I'll take it," one of the others laughed. You look like you'd break if I sneezed on you." He didn't smile, didn't rise to the bait. He just held their gaze, calm, unblinking. That silence unnerved them more than shouting would have. After a few seconds, Red Hoodie shoved the notebook back into his sister's chest and muttered, "Whatever. Not worth it." They walked off, but not before one of them turned and yelled, "See you tomorrow, freak." His sister let out a breath she'd been holding. Her hands were shaking. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, but her voice cracked. "Why do they keep doing this?" He didn't have a good answer. Because they think they can. That night he reviewed the camera footage again. This time, he saw something he'd missed before. One of the boys had a school lanyard with a name tag. Not full name, just a first name and grade. It was enough. He wrote it down. The next morning, he went to the school office before first bell. He didn't make a scene. He just asked to speak with the attendance clerk, a kind woman who'd known him since middle school. "I need to check if someone goes here," he said. showing her the name from the lanyard. She frowned but typed it in. Yeah, he's a sophomore. Why? He hesitated. He's been bothering my sister. On her way home, the woman's expression softened. I'll let the counselor know. But by lunchtime, nothing had happened. No calls, no warnings, just silence. He started to realize something. The system wasn't built to protect kids like them. It was built to keep things quiet, to avoid drama, to pretend everything was fine until it blew up. And by then, it was always too late. So he made a new plan. He began walking a different route. Not with his sister, but behind her, far enough that she wouldn't notice, close enough that he could step in if needed. He wore a hoodie, kept his head down, blended into the background. He recorded everything, every word, every shove. Every time they circled her like wolves, the bullying got worse. They started waiting near the bus stop even on rainy days, standing under the awning like they had a right to be there. One afternoon, they followed her all the way to the corner near their street. That's when he stepped out from behind a parked car. Leave her alone. They turned, surprised. Red Hoodie scowled. You again? You stalking us now? I'm protecting my sister. Walk away. One of the new boys stepped forward, puffing his chest. Make us, he didn't move. Just looked at them, calm. You really want to do this here? In front of cameras? He pointed to the traffic light pole across the street. There was a small security camera mounted near the top. It might not have been working, but they didn't know that. They exchanged glances. Red Hoodie muttered something under his breath, then jerked his chin. Whatever. She's not worth jail time. They left. But as they walked off, one of them turned and flipped him off. His sister was pale. You can't keep doing this. What if they come after you? They won't, he said. But even as he said it, he felt a chill. Because he knew they would. Bullies didn't like being challenged. And now they saw him as a threat. The next day, they weren't at the bus stop. He thought maybe they'd given up. But then halfway home, his sister's phone buzzed. A video message. She opened it and froze. It was a clip of them standing in front of their house. Not close, just far enough to be on the public sidewalk, but clear enough to see their front door, their mailbox, the little potted plant their mom kept by the steps. One of the boys pointed at the house and said, That's where the quiet girl lives. Bet she cries herself to sleep. His sister's hands trembled so badly she dropped the phone. He picked it up, his jaw tight. This wasn't just bullying anymore. This was intimidation. This was crossing into their home. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with his mom. He showed her the video. She went white. We're calling the police, she said immediately. They did. An officer came by the next morning. Friendly, polite, took notes. Said they'd monitor the area. But there was no arrest, no warning, no real consequence. Unless they trespass or make a direct threat, the officer explained. There's not much we can do. His mom looked defeated. So we just wait until they do something worse? The officer didn't answer. After he left, his mom sat at the table for a long time, staring at her coffee. I'm sorry, she finally said. I wish I could fix this. You're doing everything you can, he told her. But inside, he felt a quiet rage, not at her, but at how helpless good people were made to feel. He went to the community center that afternoon. Coach was teaching a kids class, showing 6- and 7-year-olds how to yell no and run. When the class ended, he pulled him aside. They filmed our house, he said quietly. They know where we live. Coach's face darkened. He didn't say, I told you so, he just nodded. Then it's time to be smarter. They spent the next hour going over situational awareness, how to spot surveillance, how to change routines, how to use the environment. Coach also showed him how to document everything. Dates, times, descriptions, screenshots. Paper trails matter, he said. Even if no one listens now, someday they might. He started keeping a journal. Every incident, every detail. He also asked his sister to text him the second anything felt off, even if it was just a weird look from someone at school. She did. And 2 days later, she sent a single message. They're back. Near the library. He rode his bike there fast, but by the time he arrived, they were gone. But a librarian told him they'd been loitering outside, laughing loudly, pointing at kids who walked by. One of them said something about that girl with the quiet brother, she added, frowning. He thanked her and left, his mind racing. They were talking about him now. That meant they were planning something. He couldn't protect his sister every second of the day. Schoolwork, sleep, he had his own life too. But he couldn't just wait for them to make a move. He needed to control the situation, so he set a trap. Not a violent one, not a dangerous one, just a moment where he could show them, once and for all, that they couldn't push his sister around without consequences. He studied their pattern. They always showed up between 3:15 and 3:40 p.m., right after high school let out. They hung near the bus stop because it was public, but just far enough from school property that teachers wouldn't intervene. And they always left when adults came near. So he picked a day when he knew his sister had after-school tutoring, meaning she'd be late. He told her to stay inside until he texted her. Then he waited. He parked his bike behind the laundromat out of sight. He wore plain clothes, no hoodie, no bag, nothing that looked threatening. Just a regular kid waiting for his sister. At 3:22 p.m., they appeared. Red Hoodie, the loud one, and two others. They leaned against the bus stop sign, joking, checking their phones. Then they saw his sister's usual route empty. "Where's your little friend today?" Red Hoodie called out to no one. He stepped out slowly. "She's not coming this way anymore." They turned, surprised. Then Red Hoodie grinned. "Oh, look. The bodyguard's here." He didn't react. Just stood there, hands loose at his sides. "You've been harassing a 13-year-old. For weeks. You think that makes you tough?" One of them laughed. "She's an easy target." "What's it to you?" "She's my sister." Red Hoodie rolled his eyes. "So, you gonna fight us? Go ahead, we'll all beat you down." He shook his head. "I don't want to fight, but I will if I have to." That's when the loud one stepped forward, chest out. "Try it." He didn't move. Just looked at him. "You really want to find out what I can do?" There was something in his voice, calm, certain, that made the boy hesitate. Red Hoodie grabbed his arm. "Chill, he's bluffing," but the doubt was there, and that was enough. They backed off, muttering insults as they walked away, but this time they didn't look back. He waited 5 minutes, then texted his sister. "All clear. Come out." She came running, eyes wide. "Did you talk to them?" "Yeah, what did you say?" He smiled faintly. "I reminded them that bullies always lose in the end." She didn't laugh. She just hugged him tight. "Promise me you won't get hurt." "I promise," he said. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. This wasn't over, because the next day at school someone left a note in his locker. "You think you're hot stuff? Wait till Friday." He crumpled it and threw it away. But he didn't tell his sister. He didn't want her to worry more than she already did. Instead, he doubled down on training. He practiced every evening, blocks, escapes, breathing. He reviewed de-escalation scripts in his head. "Stay calm. Create space. Use your voice. Only touch if you must." He also reached out to his sister's school counselor again. This time, he brought the journal, the video clips, the police report. The counselor finally looked concerned. "I'll escalate this to the principal," she said. 2 days later, the principal called his mom. One of the boys, Red Hoodie, had been suspended for 3 days for intimidating behavior. It wasn't much, but it was something. His sister came home that afternoon with a small smile. "He's not at school today." "Good," he said. But he knew suspensions didn't fix bullies. They just gave them time to plan, and Friday was coming. He spent Thursday night checking every angle. He made sure his sister had a ride home from tutoring. He charged the camera on her bag. He told Coach what was happening. Coach didn't offer advice. He just said, "Trust your training, and trust yourself." Friday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of day that made everything feel heavier. He walked his sister to school even though she had a ride home. "Just in case," he said. At lunch, he got a text from a kid he barely knew, a freshman who'd seen the group huddled near the football field. "They're talking about you, saying they're going to handle you after school." He didn't reply. Just saved the message. After last bell, he didn't go straight home. He waited near the bike racks watching. Sure enough, around 3:30 the group appeared. 5 of them now, including Red Hoodie, back from suspension, looking angrier than ever. They didn't go to the bus stop. They headed straight for the alley behind the corner store, the same one his sister usually walked past. His stomach dropped. They were setting a trap for her. He ran. But as he turned the corner, he saw something that stopped him cold. His sister wasn't there. Instead, standing in the mouth of the alley was a school security guard and 2 police officers. The bullies froze. Red Hoodie's face went slack with shock. One of the officers stepped forward. "We've had multiple reports of you harassing students in this area. You're trespassing on private property. You need to leave. Now." The boys stammered excuses, but the officers weren't having it. They were escorted off, warned that another incident would mean formal charges. He stood there, stunned. Then he saw his sister peeking out from behind the laundromat, where the security guard had told her to wait. She ran to him. How did they know? He shook his head. Then he remembered. The freshman who'd texted him. The counselor. His mom calling the school again. The paper trail, it wasn't just him. People had been listening. That night, his mom made pancakes, something she only did on good days. They ate in silence for a while, then she said, "I'm proud of you." He looked up. For what? For not letting fear make you cruel. For protecting your sister without becoming what they are. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. But as he lay in bed that night, he knew one thing for sure. This fight wasn't just about fists or fear. It was about showing up, again and again, even when no one seemed to care, and he would keep showing up, as long as it took. Rain tapped softly against the window that Thursday morning. The kind of steady drizzle that made the whole neighborhood feel wrapped in gray cotton. School had been canceled for teacher training, but his sister still had her after-school tutoring session, online this time, so she'd be home by early afternoon. He told her he was heading to the community center early for extra training. She nodded, barely looking up from her laptop, dark circles under her eyes from another night of restless sleep. He hated that. Hated that she still jumped when the doorbell rang, that she checked the locks twice before bed, that she flinched every time a group of older kids passed on the street. He kissed the top of her head before leaving. "I'll be back before you know it." "Okay," she murmured. "Be careful." He almost laughed. Careful was his whole life now. But he didn't go to the community center. Instead, he pedaled his bike 3 blocks past it, then doubled back on foot, cutting through alleyways and side streets he knew like the back of his hand. He wore dark clothes, no backpack, just a light jacket with the hood up, not to look threatening but to stay unseen. He clipped the small camera to the inside of his jacket, pointed outward just in case. He'd learned from last time proof mattered more than pride. He knew their pattern. Even with the police warning, they wouldn't stay away forever. Suspensions ended. Warnings faded. And bullies always came back, especially when they felt humiliated. Red Hoodie had been marched off by officers in front of half the neighborhood. He'd want to save face, and the easiest way to do that? Make someone else look weak. His sister was still their target. And today, with school out, they'd think she was walking home alone. He positioned himself behind a rusted delivery van parked near the corner store, the same spot he'd used weeks ago. From here he could see the bus stop, the alley, the sidewalk his sister always took. He leaned against the cold metal, heart steady, breath slow. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. Coach's voice echoed in his head. Control starts before the fight. It starts in the quiet. He didn't wait long. At 2:47 p.m. they appeared, 4 of them this time. Red Hoodie was there, jaw set, eyes scanning the street like a hunter. The loud one walked beside him, cracking his knuckles like it meant something. 2 others trailed behind, one filming on his phone. They didn't loiter. They moved with purpose, heading straight for the shortcut near the laundromat, the one his sister used when it rained. His stomach tightened, but his hands stayed loose at his sides. He didn't move. Not yet. 2 minutes later, his sister turned the corner. Hoodie pulled up against the drizzle, earbuds in, lost in her own world. She didn't see them until it was too late. They fanned out, blocking the sidewalk. Red Hoodie stepped forward. "Look who it is. Thought you'd be hiding today." She froze. Pulled out one earbud. "I just want to go home." "Yeah? Well, this is our block now," the loud one said, stepping closer. "You gotta pay the toll." She shook her head. "I don't have anything." "Then give us your phone," Red Hoodie said. "Consider it rent." I said no. Her voice was quiet but firm. She took a step back and bumped into the chain-link fence that ran along the vacant lot. "No escape." The loud one grabbed her wrist. "You don't get to say no." That was it. He stepped out from behind the van, let go of her. All 5 of them turned. Shock flickered across their faces, then anger, then something like fear. Red Hoodie recovered first, "Oh, it's you. Come to get your butt kicked again?" He didn't rise to it, just walked forward, calm, hands open at his sides. "I said let go." The loud one sneered but didn't release her. "Make me." He stopped 10 feet away. "You've got 3 seconds, or what?" Red Hoodie laughed. "You gonna cry?" He didn't answer, just counted in his head. 1, 2. On 3, the loud one finally shoved his sister aside, hard enough that she stumbled into the fence again, scraping her elbow. She gasped but didn't cry out. That was the moment. He moved. Not with rage, not with wild swings, but with precision, exactly as Coach had drilled into him for years. He closed the distance in 2 strides. The loud one swung first, a clumsy haymaker aimed at his head. He ducked under it, stepped inside the boy's guard, and grabbed his wrist, the same one that had grabbed his sister. A quick twist, a pivot of his hips, and the boy yelped as his arm was wrenched behind his back. Not broken, not even hurt badly, just controlled. Red Hoodie lunged. He sidestepped, used the boy's momentum to shove him into the wet pavement. The other 2 hesitated, eyes wide, phone still recording. "Back off," he said, voice low but clear. Now they didn't move. So he shifted his weight, keeping the loud one pinned just enough to show he could do more if needed. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will if you don't leave her alone. Forever." Red Hoodie pushed himself up, mud on his jeans, face red with shame and fury. "You think you're tough? You're just a scared little—" "I'm not scared," he interrupted. "But I am done." He released the loud one, who stumbled back, rubbing his arm, eyes wide. No one spoke. The only sound was the rain and his sister's shaky breathing. He turned to her. "You okay?" She nodded, tears finally spilling over, but she wiped them fast. "Yeah." He walked to her, put a hand on her shoulder just to ground her, and faced the group again. "This ends today. You come near her again and I won't be this gentle. And next time I won't be alone." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned and walked his sister away, heart pounding but steps steady. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel their silence behind him, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've met a line they can't cross. They made it home without speaking. Inside, he checked her elbow. Just a scrape. He cleaned it gently, put a bandage on it. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of hot chocolate their mom kept stocked for days like this. "You didn't hit them," she said quietly. "No." "Why not?" He sat across from her. "Because hitting them wouldn't stop them. It would just make them angrier. Or get me expelled, or worse. Coach always said, real strength is knowing when not to fight." She looked at him for a long time. Then she whispered, "You were so calm." "I had to be. For you." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Thank you," he nodded. But inside, he knew the hardest part wasn't over. It was just beginning, because later that evening his phone buzzed. A message from a classmate he barely knew. "Dude, there's a video of you going off on those guys. It's all over social media." His blood ran cold. Going off? He hadn't thrown a single punch. He opened the link. The video was shaky, shot from a distance, but clear enough. It showed him stepping out, the loud one grabbing his sister. Then blurry movement, and the next thing you saw was the loud one on the ground, Red Hoodie stumbling back, and him standing over them like some kind of street fighter. The caption read, "Crazy dude attacks kids for no reason." Comments poured in. "He's violent. School needs to expel him." What kind of monster does that? No one mentioned the grab. No one showed the shove. No one saw his sister's fear. The video started right before the takedown and ended right after. Perfectly edited to make him look like the aggressor. He showed it to his mom. Her face went pale. "They're twisting it. They always do," he said quietly. The next morning, the school called. He was suspended for 3 days, a pending investigation. For physical assault and intimidation, his mom argued. She showed them the full footage from his sister's camera, the one that showed the grab, the shove, the threat. But the vice principal just sighed. "We understand your concerns, but school policy is clear. Any physical contact between students results in immediate suspension." "But he was protecting his sister," his mom said, voice breaking. "I'm sorry," the vice principal said. "We'll review the full context." Eventually wasn't good enough. That afternoon, he sat on the back porch, rain long gone, sun trying to break through the clouds. He felt numb, not angry, Not scared, just tired. Tired of being punished for doing the right thing. Tired of a system that protected bullies with warnings and punished protectors with suspensions. Coach showed up unannounced, holding 2 bottles of water. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside him and handed him one. After a while he said, "You did everything right. I got suspended. You kept your sister safe. You used minimal force. You walked away. That's not failure. That's discipline. But no one sees it that way." "They will," Coach said. "Truth takes time. But it always rises." He wanted to believe that, but right then it felt like shouting into a storm. His sister came outside holding a folder. "I printed everything," she said. "The full video. The text they sent me. The police report. Even the note from my locker." He looked at her. "What are you going to do with it?" "Send it to the news," she said firmly. "If the school won't listen, maybe someone else will." He hesitated. "That could make things worse. Or it could make them fair," she shot back. "You didn't do anything wrong. Why should you be the one hiding?" He looked at Coach. Coach just nodded. "She's got a point." So they did it. His mom called a local news station, the one that did human interest stories, not just crime reels. She explained everything. At first, they weren't interested. But when she sent the full video, the tone changed. 2 days later, a reporter showed up at their door. The story aired on a slow Tuesday night. It wasn't flashy. No dramatic music. Just facts: a 13-year-old girl harassed for weeks, her older brother stepping in only after adults failed to act, the edited video circulating online, the suspension. The reporter interviewed the librarian who'd seen the boys loitering, the freshman who'd warned him, even the security guard who'd been tipped off that Friday. And then his sister spoke on camera, voice shaking but clear. "They called me names every day. They shoved me. They filmed our house. My brother didn't start a fight. He stopped one." The response was immediate. Parents from the school flooded the district office with calls. Community leaders demanded a review. Even some of the boys' own classmates came forward, saying they'd seen the group pick on younger kids for months. By Thursday, the school reversed his suspension. The vice principal called personally to apologize. "We misjudged the situation," he admitted. His mom didn't accept the apology. "You didn't misjudge," she said. "You chose the easy path. Don't make that mistake again." That weekend, the school hosted a mediation meeting. His mom insisted on it. So did the news station. They wanted to follow up. The boys showed up with their parents. Red Hoodie wouldn't look anyone in the eye. The loud one kept glancing at his phone, like he wished he was anywhere else. A counselor led the session. She asked his sister to speak first. She did. Not with anger, not with blame, just truth. "I was scared to walk home. I stopped eating lunch because I was too nervous. I cried myself to sleep. All because they thought it was funny." One of the parents started to interrupt. "My son would never," but the counselor held up a hand. "Let her speak." When she finished, the room was silent. Then the counselor turned to the boys. "What do you have to say?" Red Hoodie mumbled something about not meaning it. The loud one said, "We were just joking around." His sister shook her head. "It wasn't a joke to me." Finally, after a long pause, Red Hoodie looked at her. "I'm sorry, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't heartfelt. But it was a start." The counselor laid out the terms. The boys would attend a 6-week anti-bullying workshop. They'd write letters of apology, real ones not copied from the internet. And they'd stay away from his sister on and off school grounds. Violate any of it, and they'd face expulsion and possible legal action. The parents agreed, reluctantly, but they agreed. Afterward, outside the school, his sister took a deep breath. "Do you think they'll change?" He shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. But they know now that someone's watching. And that's something." She smiled a little. "You're still my hero." He rolled his eyes, but he hugged her. "Nah, I'm just your brother." But as they walked home, shoulders brushing, he felt something shift, not just in the neighborhood, but in himself. He'd stood up, not with fists, but with truth. And somehow that had been enough, for now, because he knew bullies didn't vanish overnight. But neither did protectors, and he'd be ready. Always. The days after the mediation felt strange, like the air had cleared, but the ground was still shaky. His sister walked to school with a group of friends now, girls from her math club who'd heard what happened and decided, without being asked, to stick together. They laughed louder on the sidewalk, walked with their shoulders back, and if anyone so much as looked at them sideways, they'd all stop and stare right back. It wasn't aggression, it was unity, and it worked. He didn't walk her anymore, not because he didn't want to, but because she didn't need him to. And that, more than anything, felt like victory. But at home, the tension hadn't fully lifted. His mom moved through the house quieter than usual, like she was still bracing for the next blow. She'd gotten a call from the school board. Someone had filed a complaint about the news segment, claiming it defamed the other boys. Nothing came of it, but the fact that it happened at all left a sour taste. "They're mad because they got caught," he told her one night over dinner. "Maybe," she said, stirring her tea, "but it's exhausting, you know. Having to prove you're not the bad guy just for protecting your own." He nodded. He knew exactly what she meant. Still, life began to settle. School went back to normal. Well, as normal as it could be when half the student body now looked at him like he was either a hero or a hothead. Teachers watched him a little closer, but not in a bad way. More like they were waiting to see what kind of person he really was. He made sure they saw the right one. He kept his head down, did his work, helped classmates with algebra when they asked. He even started eating lunch in the library instead of the cafeteria. Not to hide, but because it was quiet, and he liked the silence after everything that had happened. Then one afternoon, the school counselor asked to see him. He walked into her office expecting another check-in, another form to sign. But instead she smiled and said, "I've been talking to the district. They're starting a peer mentorship program. Older students helping younger ones with conflict resolution, study skills, that kind of thing. I recommended you," he blinked. "Me? You handled yourself with more maturity than most adults I know," she said. "And you've been through something real. Kids listen to people who've lived it." He didn't say yes right away. He thought about it all night. Was he ready to be that person? The one others looked to? The one who had to set an example even when no one was watching? The next morning he told her yes. The program started small, just an hour after school twice a week. He sat with 6th and 7th graders, mostly kids who'd been labeled troublemakers, but were really just lost, scared, or ignored. He didn't lecture them. He just asked questions. What happened? How did it make you feel? What could you do differently next time? Sometimes they'd talk about bullying. One boy admitted he pushed someone because kids had been calling him names for weeks and no one helped. "I just wanted them to stop," he whispered. He didn't scold him. He said, "I get that. But hitting back usually makes it worse. What if you told a teacher, or walked away and found someone you trust?" The boy frowned. "They'd just say I'm weak." "Walking away isn't weak," he said. "It's smart." "And telling someone? That's brave." The boy looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded. That moment stuck with him. Meanwhile, the other boys, the ones from the bus stop, kept their distance. They still went to the same school, but they avoided the hallways he walked, skipped the lunch line when he was there. Once he saw Red Hoodie in the parking lot talking to a counselor. He was holding a workbook titled Understanding Respect. He didn't look up, and that was fine. What surprised him most was the response from strangers. People stopped him at the grocery store. "Aren't you the kid from the news?" they'd ask. Some thanked him. Others just said, "Keep your head up." One older man, bagging groceries, quietly slipped a note into his cart. It read, "My grandson went through the same thing. You gave him hope. Thank you." He kept that note in his wallet. Then came the invitation. It arrived in an email from the school district, a request for him to speak at a citywide youth assembly on safety and respect. They wanted him to share his story. Not as a warning, but as an example of how one person's choice can change everything. He almost said no. Public speaking wasn't his thing. He didn't like being the center of attention. And the thought of standing on a stage talking about his sister, about fear, about that rainy afternoon, it made his stomach twist. But his sister found the email. "You have to do it," she said. "Why?" "Because kids need to hear it from someone who didn't use violence to win. You showed them there's another way." He looked at her, really looked. She stood taller now, smiled more. Even her laugh was louder. And he realized this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about showing others that protection didn't have to mean punishment. That strength could be quiet. that standing up for someone didn't require tearing someone else down. So he said yes. The night before the assembly, he sat on the porch with Coach. They didn't talk much. Just watched the fireflies blink on and off in the neighbor's yard. "You nervous?" Coach finally asked. "A little." "Good. Means you care." "I don't want to mess it up." "You won't," Coach said. "Just speak from here." He tapped his chest. "Not from your head, from your heart." The next morning he wore a clean shirt, dark jeans, and his old sneakers, nothing fancy. He didn't want to look like a hero. He wanted to look like a regular kid who'd been through something and come out the other side. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of students from middle and high schools across the city, teachers, parents, even a few local officials. His knees felt weak as he walked to the podium, but he took a breath. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, and began. He didn't start with the fight. He started with his sister. "I have a little sister," he said, voice steady. "She's smart, funny. She draws little comics in the margins of her notebooks. And for a while she was scared to walk home from school." He told them about the name-calling, the shoving, the video of their house. He didn't sugarcoat it, but he didn't dramatize it either. Just facts. Then he talked about the day he stepped in. "I didn't go looking for a fight," he said. "I went looking for peace. And sometimes peace means standing in someone's way when they're trying to hurt the people you love." He paused. "But here's what I learned. Real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you can hold back. It's about using your voice before your hands. It's about walking away when you know you could win, but choosing not to because winning that way doesn't fix anything." He looked out at the crowd. Some kids were leaning forward. Others had tears in their eyes. A few were nodding like they'd been there too. "I got suspended," he said. "People called me violent. But I didn't throw a single punch. I just protected my sister. And that shouldn't be something you get punished for." He ended not with anger but with hope. If you see someone being hurt, say something. Walk with them. Tell an adult who actually listens. And if you're the one being hurt, know that you're not alone. Someone out there sees you, and they're willing to stand with you. When he stepped down, the room was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause. Not polite clapping. Real loud stomping applause that shook the floor. Afterward, kids lined up to talk to him. A girl with braids said, "My brother does the same thing for me. Thank you for saying it out loud." A boy in a wheelchair whispered, "No one ever stood up for me, but maybe now I can stand up for someone else." His sister was waiting backstage, eyes shining. "You were amazing." He shook his head. "I just told the truth." "That's the bravest thing anyone can do," she said. Later that week, the school announced a new anti-bullying task force, made up of students, teachers, and parents. He was asked to join. He said yes. But the biggest change came at home. One evening, his mom sat him down at the kitchen table. She slid a folder across the surface. Inside were brochures for colleges, scholarships, even a summer leadership program focused on youth advocacy. "I've been looking," she said softly. "You've got a gift. Not just for protecting people, but for helping them protect themselves." He looked at the papers, then at her. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not anyone. You chose to stay calm when you were angry. You chose to speak up when it was easier to stay quiet. You chose to forgive when you could have held a grudge. That's not just anyone. That's you." He didn't know what to say, so he just hugged her. That night he went to the community center. Coach was locking up, but he waited. "I spoke today," he said. Coach smiled. "I saw the live stream. You watched?" "Course I did." Coach clapped him on the shoulder. "You honored your training. Not with fists, but with words. That's the highest form." They stood in the quiet parking lot for a while, the street lights casting long shadows. "You know," Coach said finally, "you don't have to carry this alone anymore." "I know. And you don't have to be perfect." "I'm trying. That's enough." As he walked home, he passed the bus stop where it all began. It was empty now, just a bench and a schedule board peeling at the edges. No one loitering, no shouting, just peace. He thought about how far they'd come, not just him and his sister, but the whole neighborhood. People watched out for each other now. Teachers paid attention. Kids walked in groups. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And better was worth fighting for, even if the fight didn't look like a fight at all. When he got home, His sister was on the couch, sketching in a new notebook. She held it up. It was a comic panel. A tall figure standing between a smaller one and a group of shadowy shapes. The tall figure wasn't throwing punches, just standing firm, arms open like a shield. She titled it, "My Brother." He sat beside her and ruffled her hair. "Not bad," she grinned. "I'm gonna draw more. About kids who stand up without tearing others down." "Yeah?" he said. I'd read those. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel heavy. It felt full of possibility. Quiet, steady, and strong, just like the walk home. Spring settled over the neighborhood like a slow sigh of relief. The trees leafed out in soft green, the sidewalks warmed under the afternoon sun, and kids played outside without glancing over their shoulders. It had been nearly a year since that rainy day near the bus stop, and life had settled into a new rhythm, one that felt lighter, safer, more like the kind of childhood his sister deserved. She wasn't the same girl who used to walk home with her head down, flinching at every shout or sudden movement. Now she led her own little group of friends, girls who laughed loud, debated anime plots, and walked in a tight cluster down the block like they owned the sidewalk. She even started a comic strip for the school newsletter, featuring a quiet hero who solved problems with words, not weapons. No one had to guess who inspired it. He watched her from a distance most days, not because he didn't trust her, but because he liked seeing her free. Free to be silly, free to dream, free to exist without fear. He'd changed too. The suspension, the news story, the assembly, they'd all left marks, but not the kind that scarred. They'd shaped him, made him think deeper, speak clearer, listen harder. He still trained at the community center, but now he helped coach teach the younger kids. Not just how to block or break a grip, but how to use their voices, how to walk with confidence, how to spot danger before it got close. Most fights start in the mind, he'd tell the 10-year-olds crouching to their level. If you see someone following you, don't wait. Cross the street. Go into a store. Call someone. Your safety isn't rude, it's smart. The kids listened. Maybe because he wasn't yelling. Maybe because they saw themselves in his story. His mom noticed the shift too. She stopped checking the locks 3 times at night. She smiled more at dinner. Asked about his day like it was just a normal day, not a countdown to the next crisis. One evening, she handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter from a local nonprofit, offering him a summer internship mentoring at-risk youth through conflict resolution workshops. "You'd be good at this," she said, stirring a pot of stew on the stove. He read the letter twice. "It's unpaid, I know," she said, "but it's a start, and you've earned it." He took the internship, not for the resume, but because he remembered what it felt like to be the kid no one saw, until it was too late. School ended with the usual chaos. Final exams, yearbook signings, the buzz of summer plans. He kept his head down, finished his projects, and helped his sister pack up her locker. As they walked out on the last day, she paused near the front gate. "Remember when I used to be scared to come here?" she said, looking up at the brick building. "Yeah, now I kinda don't want to leave." He smiled. "That's a good sign." She bumped his shoulder with hers. "You did that, you know." "Nah, you did it. I just stood nearby." But they both knew it was more than that. He'd given her the space to heal by making sure the world didn't keep hurting her. And in doing so, he'd found his own purpose. Summer arrived hot and bright. He spent mornings at the internship, afternoons at the community center, and evenings on the porch with his mom and sister, eating watermelon and watching the sky turn gold. Life felt full. Not perfect, but full. Then, in early August, the school called. They were hosting a back-to-school assembly focused on student leadership and safety. They wanted him to speak again. He almost said no. He'd said his piece. He didn't need the spotlight. But then he thought about the new 6th graders. Kids walking into a big school for the first time, nervous, unsure, maybe already carrying stories no one knew. If his words could make even one of them feel seen or safe or strong, wasn't that worth stepping up again? So he said yes. This time he didn't write a speech. He just thought about what he wished someone had told him when he was 13. The morning of the assembly, he wore the same plain shirt he'd worn last time. Washed, faded, familiar. He didn't want to look like a celebrity. He wanted to look like someone they could be. The auditorium was packed. New faces, old faces, teachers who'd watched him grow through this whole mess. His sister sat in the third row, giving him a thumbs up. Coach stood in the back, arms crossed, nodding once. He walked to the mic, heart steady. He didn't start with drama. He started with a question. How many of you have ever felt like you had to handle something alone? Hands rose, tentatively at first, then more. Some kids looked at their laps. Others met his eyes like they were waiting for permission to speak. I used to think that, he said. I thought if I told someone what was happening to my sister, it would make her look weak, or make me look like I couldn't protect her. So I stayed quiet until it got too big to carry by myself. He paused. But here's what I learned. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's how you win. He talked about the camera on the backpack, the journal, the calls to the school, the police report. I didn't stop the bullying with my hands. I stopped it with proof, with people, with persistence. And none of that would have worked if I'd tried to do it alone. A girl in the front row wiped her eyes. He kept going. Some of you might be going through something right now. Maybe it's bullying. Maybe it's something else, family stuff, stress, feeling like you don't belong. Whatever it is, you don't have to face it by yourself. Tell a teacher you trust. Talk to a friend. Call a helpline. Even text someone. Just don't stay silent. He looked out at the sea of faces, young, old, nervous, curious. And if you see someone else struggling, don't just walk by. Say something. Sit with them at lunch. Walk with them between classes. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is be a friend. He didn't mention the fight. Not once. He didn't need to. The real story wasn't about that moment in the rain. It was about everything that came after. The choices, the conversations, the quiet courage of showing up again and again. When he finished, the applause wasn't thunderous. It was warm, real, like people weren't just clapping for him, they were clapping for the idea that things could be better. Afterward, a line formed. Not for autographs, but for connection. A boy with glasses said, "My older brother got suspended last year for defending me." People called him a thug, but he was just trying to help. "I'm sorry," he said. "That's not fair." "It's okay," the boy said. "Hearing you talk, it made me feel less alone." A teacher pulled him aside. "We're starting a student-led safety committee next month. Would you consider advising it?" He nodded. "Yeah, I'd be honored." As he walked out, his sister fell into step beside him. "You didn't even mention martial arts." "I didn't need to," he said. "The real weapon wasn't my training. It was my refusal to let fear win," she smiled. "You're kind of wise, you know that?" "Nah," he said, nudging her. "I just paid attention." That evening they sat on the porch as dusk settled in. Fireflies blinked in the yard. The air smelled like cut grass and distant grilling. His mom brought out lemonade. "Proud of you," she said simply. He sipped his drink. "I'm proud of us because it wasn't just him. It was his sister's courage to speak up. His mom's relentless calls to the school. Coach's steady guidance. The librarian who noticed. The freshman who sent a warning text. The reporter who told the full story. The kids who now walked together. It took a village to undo the damage bullies caused. And slowly, quietly, their village had risen. A few days later, he got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small wooden plaque, hand-carved, with words burned into the surface. Strength is not in the fist, but in the choice to protect without destroying. At the bottom, in tiny letters, from someone who needed to hear it, he hung it in his room above his desk. School started again. His sister walked to the bus stop with her friends, backpack slung over one shoulder, laughing about something silly. He watched from the window until she was out of sight. Then he grabbed his own bag and headed out, not to follow her, but to go his own way. To the community center, where a group of 8-year-olds waited for their self-defense class. He'd teach them how to yell no, how to run, how to find safety, but more importantly, he'd teach them this: your power isn't in how hard you can hit. It's in how deeply you care and how far you're willing to go to keep others safe, without losing your own humanity in the process. As he walked, the sun warm on his back, he thought about the boy he'd been a year ago. Tense, watchful, ready to fight at a moment's notice. That boy had done what he had to do. But the person he was now? He could do more, he could build something better, and that, more than any victory, was worth everything.